Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Who dares awaken me from my long-deserved slumber? Jessica Jones, aka the Cryptid Huntress. Yes, once again, you have found your way into the Fox Den for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on LordeStarfox Radio. Yet please allow me to feed. Absolutely delicious. And now that I am revamped, recharged, and ready to stalk the Dogman, it is time for the Midnight Society to take a walk into the darkness. And remember, massacres make the dream work, or something like that.
Blood, cracks, shadows morph, fangs, pierce, bleeds reborn, fury rise, health ignites, burnish rays, endless nights.
When I looked into the eyes of this Dogman, there was nothing. This thing was an apex predator.
Milk road, cracks, shadows morph, fangs pierce, beats reborn, fury rise, health ignites, burnish rays, endless nights.
My creatures of the night, yes, welcome back once again to another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on LordeStarfox Radio. This is the home and the stomping ground of the Midnight Society, and we once again sit by the late night fire and burn the timber. Jessica Jones, aka the Cryptid Huntress, has once again found her way into the Fox Den. How you doing tonight, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing great. It's good to be here again, hanging out with you.
You're a legend. You're always just super stardom busy, so I appreciate being definitely able to sit down and share some really messed up information with you that's been shared with me recently and try to figure out what the heck is going on with missing people and all these strange sightings for sure.
Oh man, I love good mystery, and there's a lot of missing people out there, so I'm looking forward to hearing about it.
Good stuff. What have you been up to in general?
Oh man, working on shows and taking reports and going out in the field. Just the same old, same old. Just trying to stay busy and get out in the woods as much as possible.
It's great stuff right there. And I don't know if you can use the term stay busy. I think that's like something that somebody that might need to stay busy would be saying, but I feel like you're pretty jam-packed, right?
I am. I'm just having fun. I'm having a lot of fun and doing a lot of work with some really great people like yourself. Staying busy is easy for me, definitely, for sure.
Great stuff. I appreciate the kind words, and I feel exactly the same right back at you, which is why I always try to get you on as much as possible. And I do appreciate you popping in because to the audience, you really should know by now, Jessica is here bi-weekly. Occasionally, yes, sometimes I even get her back-to-back weeks, but y'all should know this by now. And if not, go over and check out her stuff. She's always tagged up, linked in the description. So what are we doing here? Because if you know about my page, like what the Christmas trees, you have to know about the Cryptid Huntress. So make sure to go over there and check that out for sure.
Thank you. Yeah. Always got something going on. Always got some great guests, some great shows. Like I said, always busy.
That it is, preach. And yeah, to my audience, if you like to see guests speak live and, the hosts speak live, Jessica is always churning out live stuff. Yes, I do go live sometimes. And I've explained this before. My hairdressers are my nieces who are like 4 and 5, so it's not really something that is easiest to accomplish to get all my accessories on. But yes, I've been live before. So actually, I've been live twice with Jessica and a few other times. I do make appearances, but that's not really something that I tried to. I don't know. I'm an artist, and I just had a plethora of art and stuff, literally just collecting, that I figured would make a lot of sense to show into what I was trying to create, which is kind of why I came up with showing a little bit more visuals, I guess, than always going live. But like I said, to anyone that wants to see that, Jessica's got all her guests on there all the time going live. And actually, some of her guests have been here before too. So tonight, though, oh boy, the Cryptid Huntress has some really interesting stuff for you. But before we dive into that, I have some really nightmare fuel, frigged up encounter that happened to this guy that was solo camping in Washington. Okay. Got to tell the audience this. Definitely got to tell Jessica this. And you know what's really disturbing about this encounter is it was with a person. There is no cryptid here, okay? And this guy saw this person and definitively knew it was a physical person, which makes it that much more horrific. This guy's out there, setting up his camp for the night. And I'm not going to put him totally on blast because I don't know if he wants me to just put his information out there. So, like I said, he's in Washington, sets up for the night. No one's really around at all. He said he's in a pretty isolated area, hadn't seen anybody, gets the fire going, sets up his stuff. He's blogging a little bit. Everything seems good. All of a sudden, he hears what sounds like metal, as if like keys or something had just, and then a crunch, and a crunch, and then a stop. So he's like, okay, what the heck? Doesn't say anything. He stands up, starts shining his flashlight around. So obviously, whatever person or whatever this was at this point in time had found a place to bed down so he couldn't see them. He feels definitely pretty uneasy at this point in time. So as he's shining his light around, he sits back down, gets a really, really eerie feeling. He hears a couple more crunching. Again, can't see anybody. So now he picks up all his stuff and he's like, you know what? I'm out of here. As he's getting ready to head back to his nearby truck, out of the corner of his eye and the side of his flashlight, he sees a figure that definitely is standing still to be not seen because he doesn't want to be seen or she doesn't want to be seen, but he definitively knew this was someone standing there because it just didn't match in out of the peripheral of his eye. So he turns around with his flashlight now, and it's the back of this person decked out in complete camo. And this guy's like, I don't want to say anything because now obviously I've completely busted this person. I'm in the middle of the forest, in the dark, in the middle of nowhere. What the frig is this person doing in my campsite? If I say something, they're going to just be like, oh, I'm busted, bang, and like shoot me or something. So he said he's just sitting there holding the flashlight and sees this person. So he starts like kind of backing up, and he said he doesn't know the exact time frame, but it was a good couple of minutes. Doesn't say a dang thing. So he says as he's backing up towards his truck, he turns, gets his stuff in there, and turns back around. This person was gone. So he sped up out of there. And that just goes to show everybody, be careful out there because, sure, we haven't fully been able to prove potentially what's going on with cryptids, but we can 100% prove to you there are people out there doing messed up stuff because at the end of the day, like that guy was saying, why was this person in camo? Why did they not enunciate themselves to me coming into my camp? And what were they going to do to me?
Oh, Kenny, that sounds wild. That's why I carry a firearm with me when I'm out in the woods. It is not because the Bigfoots. I'm not scared of the Bigfoots. I am a little worried about the Dogmen for sure, but it's people. Okay, it's people. It's the unknown. You just don't know what you're going to come across. I mean, I have a picture of a really strange person or something that's up in a tree, and this lady and her husband are out camping, and it sounds kind of similar to what you're describing there. They were out camping and they heard some rustling outside. She heard some in the middle of the night, so she just she turned on her camera phone, turned on the video to record, and just kind of stuck her camera outside of her tent. and started recording and kind of did a sweep of the area outside her tent. Well, she put her camera away. She didn't really examine the video or anything. She just said, hey, I'll just check it in the morning. I don't want to deal with this tonight. Maybe a Bigfoot out there. And the next morning she got up and there was this really odd creature in a tree. To me, it looked like a naked man. I don't know if it was a man. I'm not sure. I mean, it could have been a gigantic owl or something, but it looked like a man. You could see his eyes, his feet. He was kind of like sitting in the fork of a tree, squatting down, kind of like looking towards her tent. I mean, it's odd. I mean, could it be a skinwalker? Totally. I mean, could it just be a feral human? Absolutely. It could have even been a Bigfoot. I mean, I don't know what it was. It looked like he didn't have any hair on his body. You just don't know. And also, there's people like myself. We go out in the woods and do our research out in the field, and we're hiding out in those woods too. I mean, when people come up on us, if we ever do encounter people, we usually just duck down, and a lot of times we'll hide until they go by. So you won't ever know that we're even out there. Okay. We take a really sneaky approach out in the field sometimes when we're somewhere where there could be other people. And a lot of times we're so far out in the woods that we never encounter other humans. But certain times we do. And you just don't know what's lurking out there. You have no idea. People who live out in the woods, who live in the woods, who are even hunters, even Bigfooters, people in the military too. I mean, we know how to blend in and hide. And so, yeah, you never know what's lurking around in those woods. Just like that person who you just described had that encounter.
Isn't that the truth? And that's what's so freaked up about that is as you're speaking, and before we dive into some of the crazy Dogman stuff that you have, which is just as gnarly, it just all ties into that because as stated before, I do believe some people are just having misfortunes. I do believe some people are missing because they want to be missing, and I do believe people are missing because of known predators. But then I also do believe that some of this other strange stuff is occurring, meaning just what we talked about right there, the cryptid sightings, the missing people in cave systems, etc. But just the thought of not even a say malnourished person, because the gentleman that had this encounter lives in society. So imagine somebody, let's say, that has the capabilities of maybe a Navy SEAL or somebody like special forces along the lines of that, right? And they just, yeah, sure, they still do their duty, but they are a serial unaliver, which there has been numerous cases of people that functioned in society still that were doing things like that until they were caught. So what if that's what they do to go out to, get their fix, kind of like a Dexter or something, right? Except Dexter, I guess in theory, was supposedly doing it in a good way, right? We're not really saying these people are trying to do it like that, but that's not the moral of it. So now you have somebody that's so highly trained out there just unaliving people. So yeah, that could have just been a random person decked out in the camo, no matter what, had some sort of apparently nefarious purpose. But now imagine if it was somebody that was just so lethal that you wouldn't even stand a chance to like defend yourself.
Yeah, that's why you have to be aware of your surroundings at all times. I always say at the end of every show that I do, I say, y'all keep your head on a swivel. Always, no matter where you are. That's in everyday waking life. It's when you're camping. It's when you're at the grocery store. It's when you're at the park with your kids. Pay attention to your surroundings. Know your environment, and just be aware. People. We talk about the dangers of going into, let's just say, national parks, state parks, and stuff. Even on private lands. I mean, anywhere in the wilderness, you're going to potentially encounter other people. Okay, there's going to be other people there. And it's we've had cases in Georgia where I live where serial unalivers, like you'd said, are camped out and hiding out in the deep woods of the forest there, the national parks. That's why I do carry a firearm with me a lot of times when I'm out, because I'm a single female here. Okay, and I do have a kid with me a lot of times. He's not always with me when I'm out in the woods. But he goes out with me a good bit, and we just go hiking and stuff. And I know the dangers. Okay, I know the dangers. But then again, I mean, the guys that I go out in the field with, a lot of them do have extensive military backgrounds, and they do like to hide. Let me tell you, we all will duck down and get down if there's anybody near us. I mean, that happens all the time. We've encountered people from afar. We blend into the environment where they're not going to see us. And especially at night, most of us have night vision and FLIRs and stuff. And we're watching around us. We can see you, but y'all can't see us. Okay. So always keep that in mind. And it's important to also, as a field researcher, it's important to have the skills and the skill set to be able to blend into your environment, like that person that you're talking about in the camo. That's how we do kind of chase down some of these cryptids. We blend into the environment just like they do. Okay. They think they're stalking us, but we're also stalking them. Okay. So they stalk us, we stalk them, and vice versa all the time. And you got to think like a cryptid when you're out there doing that research.
Preach, my friend, and that is absolutely terrifying for sure. Just the thought of, I have a heck of an imagination, which is what helps me be able to create content and such. But also when I watch like super cheese movies, or even every once in a while when there is a good horror / creature feature, because I'm not really big into that slashers. I get the creature feature from like my late mom, rest in peace, mom. But like she always watched the gnarly like American Werewolf in London and Critters and Night of the Living Dead, just straight up creature features. So I catch myself watching those in the background sometimes, but I always just, like I said, use my imagination to indulge myself into what it would be like to be chased by that, which I think actually helps me when I create content to be able to try to figure out, well, wait a second, how would the audience be feeling? Or how would I want the audience to feel? Well, obviously, I'd want them to feel like they were in the hands of the victim here. So it's definitely pretty interesting.
Well, I can tell you from experience, it's exhilarating. It's so fun. And I love what I do. And I don't recommend that anyone that's not prepared do it. Don't do it. Okay. Don't do it. Unless you've been doing it. I've been doing this for a long time. I love what I do. And I'm not saying don't go out there and do cryptid research and stuff. I think everybody should. Everybody should have at least, go out and try it once. Go on an expedition at least one time with a big group of people, at least. To me, there's nothing like it. I love it. I do it as much as I can. And it's terrifying. It is terrifying. I'm not going to lie. It's terrifying. It'd be terrifying to the normal person for sure. But to me, it's just fun.
That is so funny. Well, before I toss you the mic to dive into some of the stuff here on a funny note, so you're telling me more or less I shouldn't just go out and look for this unknown cryptid and then just put it in my rainbow and gold teeth and just try to fight it? It wouldn't work like that, huh?
I mean, you can totally do that. I mean, you can do it, but just be careful. Okay. Just be very, never go alone. I know you're a vampire. You can handle your own. I know that. At the same time, just be careful. I always tell everybody, don't ever go in the woods by yourself. We have a very strict protocol on all of my teams. We never go anywhere alone. Okay. We never go in the woods alone. We always have somebody with us, and we always have communication with base camp at all times. Of course, I'm doing some pretty dangerous stuff out there, but anybody who is chasing a Dogman or a Bigfoot is doing dangerous stuff.
Yes, you don't want people to be like, well, Jessica, what was StarFox doing? You're just going to be like, I don't know, I guess he was on Skittles or something,
Yeah, right. He was tasting the rainbow. Yes.
Yeah, sugar rush. But so tonight, recently, you were talking about some really gnarly Dogman stuff, which I encourage the audience to do. Check out those recent episodes. But yeah, I would like to hear some of your thoughts on that, because it's pretty intriguing stuff for sure.
Absolutely. Man, I've got a couple of things to talk about tonight. Been really interested in what I've always been told they were called are Indian burial mounds. Or if you look them up online, they're really called earthen mounds. Okay, just mounds all over the United States, especially in the South. I live down here in Georgia, and we have a lot of mounds. Okay, a lot of these mounds have actually had giant skeletons excavated from these mounds. And I have always been told since I was a kid they are from Native American burial mounds. In the South, all over here, we call them Indian burial mounds. And some of them are huge. Some of them are small. There's actually a lot of mounds, especially around the rivers. the Mississippi River, and actually there's a whole group of mound builders that are called the Mississippian mounds. They built the Mississippian mounds up and down the Mississippi River. We actually have Mississippian mounds here in Georgia, even though we're like 2 or 3 states away from that river. We have rivers all over Georgia as well, including the Savannah River, and we have mounds that go through the north part of Georgia. We have them in the middle part of Georgia, and it's really interesting because a lot of our mounds on the map, if you go back to the maps that were made in the early 1800s that show the placement of every single mound that they had documented, there's like 1,000 at least. I mean, there's so many. I'm talking about from like the Midwest over to the East Coast. And in Georgia and in Alabama and Tennessee and North Carolina, where there are mounds, that's where I do a lot of my research, okay, because that's where the cryptids are. And so I've been really interested in Dogman sightings around burial mounds because we get a lot of reports. And if you go to some of the reports, even on the North American Dog Project's website, there's reports of dogmen being seen near these burial mounds. Now, okay, so I did a show the other day, brought up some of the maps from the North American Dogman Project because I was seeing a correlation of the sightings. You guys have made the maps that have a picture of a dogman on different states, and where the sightings of these dogmen are, you put a little dog. Okay, not a little dog, like a dogman. So there's a representation of the dogman there for each state, and if you overlap that with the map of the Indian burial mounds, or the earthen mounds as we're going to call them today, a lot of them match up. Okay, so there's like concentrations of mounds, and then there's a dogman sighting there. So I've just been really super interested in that. I went state by state and was comparing the North American Dogman Project reports with some of those mounds. And we're talking about some of the biggest reports that you guys have, especially, are out of Michigan and Ohio. There's even a lot in Mississippi, I do believe. I don't know if I brought the Mississippi map up that day, but Florida, Georgia, Virginia had like 3, I think, but three reports of dogmen and a whole bunch of mounds. Let's see, I want to say Pennsylvania too. Okay, I did that one. A bunch of different states, I can't remember, but a lot wherever there's a bunch of mounds, there are dogman reports. Okay, I just wanted to make that correlation here because I don't think it's talked about enough. And these mounds go way back. Okay, way back. The earthen mounds are some of the earliest monumental constructions in the entire world, they say. They're said to have been engineered by a diverse group of like Native American groups, but the sizes, the shapes of them, and the purposes are completely different depending upon which area you're in. But like I said earlier, a lot of these mounds have been burial mounds that contained giants, like giant skeletons. That's a whole different topic. But why, some people say that the dogmen are seen guarding these mounds. And it is true. There's a lot of reports as well as dogmen in cemeteries, not just, old cemeteries. We're talking about modern day cemeteries. I had Colleen Norris on my show a while back. Wonderful lady, field researcher out of Ohio. She owns that video of those 2 girls that drove through that cemetery in Ohio and thought they were looking at a dirty lady digging a hole in a cemetery plot. But it turned out to be what I believe is a dogman, an all-black dogman. And it was digging in the cemetery into a plot that there were no urns there, but there was like a cremation urn in the plot beside it. But in that particular plot, there was nothing there. It was just empty ground. Okay, it was just dirt. Colleen did an extensive investigation there and actually knows the man who was buried right there beside the plot where the dogman was digging. What are these dogmen doing in these cemeteries? Okay, well, I think I may have mentioned on a show that you and I have done earlier, my good friend William Nighthawk has told us, he's of Native American heritage, and told everybody on a show, and I've talked to him about it, that a lot of these lands have been cursed or blessed by Native American shamans. He said to think in terms of all the cemeteries where people are buried, those automatically sacred ground. And that's why there's so many dogman sightings at a lot of these places, because there are cemeteries. And the medicine men, the medicine women, you can either look at it as a curse or a blessing. They curse the land. by summoning a dogman, a werewolf, a Bigfoot, even the Fae, little people, puckwudgies, I don't know, anything they feel would protect that land, any kind of elemental spirit or an animal. They summoned them, they conjured them basically to protect that land at all costs. He said protect it at all costs. That includes getting violent and potentially unaliving people. In my opinion, okay, that this is for entertainment purposes only. Okay, I have to say that on my channel because it's 100% that is right. I think that has been the missing piece. It's almost like a missing link. Okay, that information that he's given us to me is the missing link when it comes to dogmen being seen guarding the mounds and guarding the cemeteries. And so I think they are the guardians of the mounds. And you know what's really interesting is that Anubis, the Egyptian god of the underworld, basically. And it's interesting now because the dogmen are the guardians of mounds, of the cemeteries.
Dang, that's some straight up gnarly stuff right there, and wild for sure. And as you were speaking about that, I had some interesting thoughts that were popping into my head. Pretty much the area called Werewolf Square that I dubbed, which obviously not meaning like werewolf directly. It just sounds better than Dogman Square. And also, my buddy Aaron Deese had the Dogman Triangle that he dubbed. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to do a spin off of that. But that area includes the land between the lakes. So obviously, Kentucky, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, a whole little area right there. So that's interesting you said that. And then, have you heard about the case of the crossroads basically in North Carolina where some people drive by this graveyard and this dark black hound or dog thing chases them, but it never causes damage. It's almost like an escort, but it only follows to the bridge that goes over this stream, so it makes like a cross. Dennis has been down there before and found like strange tracks, I guess, but that happens down in North Carolina. So that's interesting you said that. But then also down in South Carolina, there is a white version that is seen that, long story short, is this guy that was a passer through back in the day got blamed for something he didn't do, and they unalived him. And his dog stayed around, obviously, because what the heck, he just unalived his owner, and then the town basically unalived the dog. So now the spirit of this huge white looking wolf dog thing basically is not very kind towards people. And that happened down in South Carolina. But that just makes me think, like you were saying with what William Nighthawk said, the whole aspect of curses. In almost all the spots of that land, you have curses coming from, like, I'll use Kentucky and Tennessee for an example. You have the Native Americans that curse that land for being taken from them, and then you have the LBL that was created obviously on top of indigenous burial grounds for more or less a vacation land. But then you have the Kentucky witches that were forced up there. They were trying to unalive them, so now you have them cursing the land. And in a lot of these other areas as well, you have even more modern cultures that have been pushed out too, that put negative energy on the land. So that makes me really think, the burial grounds, like you said, the mounds, that all seems to be potentially something to do along the lines of maybe the curse, which would seem to be maybe werewolf, not necessarily like dogman, I guess. Because like when I think dogman, I think of the cynocephali, and they never seem to have anything, as far as I know. I mean, granted, we weren't back then, but they seem to be seen up in the mountains, battlefields, not really necessarily just chilling around grave sites. But when you come to like the manifestations, the occult, and all those cursed books, the summoning of these dark entities, well, that all takes place in areas and deals with people that are no longer here, etc. You are dealing with like werewolves and the summoning of things like hellhounds, and it's really baffling. So that kind of makes me think a little bit with all that cursedness that maybe, yeah, it's a manifestation of a werewolf.
Yeah, it could be 100%. It could be. He said they summon, so it's like a summoning. Bigfoot, Sasquatch too. Okay, so I don't know. Who knows? It could just be summoning, like, hey, you guys come in and protect this place. It's not like I mean, I don't know. There's a weird blurred line there between the werewolves and the dogmen and stuff. Some people think they're the same thing too. I just had a conversation with my friend Eric, who came on my show last week. E.D. Tesserman is his name. He's an author of some really interesting books that involve werewolves and dogmen and stuff. Well, he lives out in Missouri, and he took a couple of reports. One of them was from 50 years ago, and the other one was from recent. And it's basically describing the same being, the same animal, the same dogman or werewolf. It sounded kind of similar. I think the one from 1950 was more of a darker shade of like a black, and the one from more recently, it sounded like the same body build and everything. The more recent one was like a brindle colored dogman in Missouri. You know what's really wild too is that he couldn't tell if it was a werewolf or a dogman. There's been a kind of a debate on it. He gave that to me, the encounters. He actually lumped them together and gave me a remote viewing target to like figure out, because he thought that actually the creatures were one creature. Maybe it was like one from 50 years ago. It was like showing back up again. I think it was actually two different creatures, because we really don't know the lifespan on dogman and even werewolves too, I guess. But dogman, we're not sure. But he had given me this as a target. These are blind targets, so I don't know what they are. When I got done with that session, I was like, hey, does this involve some kind of military program? I was like, is this a military program? Because I was seeing things like something that was on a mission. I was getting something that was chaos, very chaotic, and something that was battling. It was like in war, it'd been unaliving people. Like there was unaliving going on and all sorts of weird battle stuff. But whatever I was remote viewing, it was deployed, and it was almost like a guided missile. It was a weapon. It was literally a weapon. So there's a lot more of that data, of course. There's more to it than that, but it was really weird because I went over all this data with him, and he was like, wow. He was like, well, first of all, it was a Civil War battlefield. Okay, where this was, it was in an open pasture where these sightings were, same area, same location. And that would actually give credibility to whatever this was, potentially working in some kind of program as an asset. Okay, now, we talk about this a lot. We talk about, dogmen being assets, being used by maybe the military or some kind of special agency to do things like unaliving people, okay, or kidnappings or whatever. And whatever this was seemed to have been on some sort of a mission, and it was tired. And that's probably why that's why it didn't go after the people who actually witnessed it, because it was battle worn. It was like a battle worn soldier that had been on missions, and it was tired. That's what my data said on here. So I just thought that was kind of cool to point out. There's been a lot of debate on whether it was a werewolf or a dogman, okay, or a dogman. And I don't know. Both are out there and both are running rampant, and I think both could potentially be working in some kind of weird agency type program.
Straight up right there, my friend. And Breach, before we let you go, that just put a thought into my head to imagine a werewolf taking on like the dogman, because like I said, I believe there is a difference. I mean, I consider the dogman like the cynocephali that, built their armor and swords. So imagine, a cynocephali dogman using their weapons like that, taking on a werewolf. That's like something out of a Hollywood movie. I gotta get on that, right?
Yeah, it is. That would make a great movie. I'd watch it for sure.
Right? You got the cynocephali all decked out in like armor, like the Greeks and Romans taking on these savage shape-shifting werewolves. That's actually pretty gnarly. But thanks again for stopping in tonight and hanging out with us for sure, because as stated, you're always super busy and always on the prowl figuring out what the heck's going on. So I always do appreciate you allotting time to come hang out with us.
Well, thanks for letting me come hang out. It's always a good time. We have a great time. Just hope that everybody who's listening into the show do some more research into the mounds and the history behind the mounds and dogman sightings, because I think it's great. I think there's a whole lot of more information that we really need to look into that a little bit more when it comes to the dogman and cryptid field research right there. It's a great topic. And yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thank you for everyone who once again stopped by tonight for this episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. If you do enjoy my content, please like, subscribe, and share it. Feed the algorithm, and I will catch you on the next one.